Or is this full-time MMA now?
I love full-time MMA right now.
Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full-time
MMA.
And what is up, full-time family? It is time to break down and predict UFC Lincoln. I believe it's fight night 137. I lost track of the fight night numbers. I've really just been calling them by like the states or cities that they're taking place in, like UFC Denver, UFC mother trucking, you know what I'm saying, Chile, UFC whatever, so Hamburg. So I've really just been not keeping track of the fight night number. But hey, that's another topic for another day. Who really cares? But with that being said, this is UFC Lincoln. It's going to be headlined by Justin Gaethje and James Vick. Can't wait. But we're going to get into this card. We're going to start with the first fight of the night. Really fun fight. We got Eryk Anders returning against Tim Williams. Eryk Anders' only loss in his career was his most recent fight, a split decision loss to Lyoto Machida, and a lot of people thought Eryk Anders won that fight, so he could still be undefeated. Tim Williams lost to Anthony Smith twice before entering the UFC, and then he went on a 5-fight winning streak and got the call to the UFC, but he did lose his UFC debut to Oscar Pichota. So I'm going to be giving the edge in this fight to Eryk Anders, who's a former Alabama Crimson Tide national champion and turned UFC middleweight that is almost undefeated aside from that close split decision with the former middleweight champion Lyoto Machida. With that being said, Eryk Anders has also won 6 of his 10 wins by way of knockout. He KO'd Rafael Natal in his UFC debut, and he wasn't just fighting cans outside the UFC. Eryk Anders will likely be the most explosive and athletic opponent Tim Williams has faced to date, and Williams has lost 3 of his 4 fights by way of KO. 3 of his 4 losses, at least, by way of KO TKO. So Anders could for sure get an early knockout in this fight, to be honest. We'll see what happens. I'm definitely taking the Alabama Crimson Tide native Eryk Anders. Roll Tide. With that being said, moving on to John Moraga versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Number 6th ranked flyweight in the world, taking on the number 14th ranked undefeated flyweight Deiveson Figueiredo. Deiveson Figueiredo is an undefeated flyweight finisher who has finished 12 of his 14 fights, but that record is a little padded, just a tad bit, as most of his opponents had 500 records outside the UFC, but he did beat a couple guys with some good records. But his split decision win against Jared Brooks was a pretty clear robbery in my mind. I watched the fight live, and Figueiredo got taken down repeatedly, and also on the fight measures was outstruck. I don't know how he got that fight. I think it was in Brazil. That probably had a lot to do with it. He remained undefeated, and so unfortunately John Moraga got robbed in that fight. But fortunately for Deiveson Figueiredo, not John Moraga, but Jared Brooks got robbed in that fight. But fortunately for Deiveson Figueiredo, he got to keep his O intact. But now, he's taking on the very tough John Moraga. John Moraga has more experience. He's also been fighting higher level competition, most recently a unanimous decision over Wilson Hayes, but he's riding a 3-fight winning streak, and also he has a first round KO over Magomed Nurmagomedov in that time. I gotta pick John Moraga in this fight, man. As long as he can avoid getting finished by, the dangerous Figueiredo. Moraga has fought some of the best flyweights in the world, and Deiveson, as unfortunately it seems like a hype train waiting to be derailed, Moraga is tried and true. Now Figueiredo could fuck around, come in here, catch a submission or a finish, catch John Moraga off guard like you can in any fight, but John Moraga's got enough experience, UFC experience against the best guys to, I believe, not get finished by the less experienced Figueiredo, who we have also saw had some trouble in the UFC against Jared Brooks. So we'll see what happens, but I think John Moraga is too tried and true to really come in here and get rolled over by this. And I don't like calling Deiveson Figueiredo a straight hype job because he's got some legit wins, right? But the thing is, I don't think he's like next flyweight champion material type shit. So eventually that O's gonna go, and I don't think he's gonna make it all the way to the title before that happens. And John Moraga is the guy that can for sure get that W. So I'm picking John Moraga to get the win here. Moving on, we got a very fucking this fight's almost deeper than rap. A lot of people don't know about this fight. I didn't before I did my research. There's some shit to this fight here that, I mean, if you were picking Brian Barberena, because Jake Ellenberger has definitely not been looking great in his last few fights, but he's got a lot to fight for here. Let me explain. Walk with me, full-time family. Jake Ellenberger, I'm going to give the edge to Courtney Casey to win a stand-up battle in this fight. Angela Hill may score a takedown or two throughout the course of the fight, but I don't think she'll be able to keep Courtney Casey down, even if she does score a takedown or so, because Courtney Casey is one of the biggest strawweights in the division for sure. She's, you know, gonna have the size advantage in this fight, and of course, Angela Hill, who's already not just known for her wrestling, even if she does get a takedown, it's gonna be hard to keep Courtney Casey down. So we'll see what happens. I'm giving the edge to Casey, who's replacing Alexa Grasso on short notice, but still a very game opponent. Moving on to the co-main event, we got Michael Johnson taking on Andre Fili. Michael Johnson has lost 4 of his last 5 fights at lightweight before moving down and losing his featherweight debut to Darren Elkins at the beginning of the year. Fili has won 3 of his last 4 fights, coming off of wins over the GOAT Artem Lobov and also a split decision win over Dennis Bermudez. Fili is well-rounded and has scored 9 takedowns in his last 2 fights. But Michael Johnson is also well-rounded. He's got great takedown defense, and he's in dire need of a win. I'm sure he'll be looking to fight a safe fight just to get the win under his belt here and look to avoid being cut, you know. And so if he can avoid being finished, I think he could win this fight. I don't think he's going to get too risky and, you know, put himself in out of position to where he can, like, get clipped and lose the fight, getting caught in a submission or knocked out. I think he's just going to be trying to at least outpoint Andre Fili in this fight, just coast to a win. And honestly, I'm not even mad at him, man. Michael Johnson is a very talented fighter. But if you look at his record as of late, you would not believe it. He's lost 5 of his last 6 fights. It's like, what's going on here, man? And he's been winning a lot of those fights. He's been up in some of those fights. He's knocked out Dustin Poirier. That's his only win. That's crazy. Dustin Poirier is one of the best lightweights in the world. Michael Johnson, he's shown he can beat the best lightweights in the world. But he was just skidding, man. So now he's down to featherweight, new weight division. He's looking to get his bearings back, but he had a tough outing against Darren Elkins, who he was beating, and then the damaged Darren Elkins came back and got the W. So I was like, damn, unfortunate for Michael Johnson. It's a much needed win, so I don't expect him to come out here trying to go crazy, you know what I'm saying, Justin Gaethje style, trying to get a fucking knockout and impress the fans. Fuck that. He needs a win. He needs a win. So I'm picking Michael Johnson to get the W, trying to come in here and outpoint Fili. I'm not expecting fireworks in this fight just because Michael Johnson needs to fight safe and get a win. So we'll see what happens. I'm taking Michael Johnson. If he loses this fight, he could for sure be Bellator bound. So fighting for a lot. So moving on to the main event between James Vick and Justin Gaethje. I didn't even take notes for this fight. I mean, come on, it's the main event. Who needs notes for James Vick versus Justin Gaethje? James Vick is 9-1 in his 10 UFC fights. He's a guy that has been calling out some of the top-ranked guys, hasn't been getting that opportunity. He's a guy that might be a little, you know, high risk, low reward. Not a lot of people know James Vick, so the higher-ranked guys aren't interested in fighting him because he's not a big name and he doesn't have a big rank. It's not like they're trying to take his rank. If they fight him and lose, they lose their rank, and if they beat him, they don't really get shit. So James Vick has been one of those guys that's a high risk, low reward. He reminds me almost, not all the way, he almost reminds me of like Max Holloway and Tony Ferguson, because he's just racking up wins, you know what I'm saying? He's not getting some crazy push where he's just getting thrown into a title shot. He's not even getting, it's hard getting him a damn top 10 ranked opponent. So he's just got to keep whooping ass and whooping ass and whooping ass until he finally gets that higher ranked opponent. And now he's finally got one. He had to take the opportunity on short notice because Justin Gaethje was supposed to be fighting Ally Quinta, but once Ally Quinta pulled out, James Vick, you know, got into the fight, stepped up on short notice and said, hey, I need this opportunity, a higher ranked opponent. That's what I've been asking for. So James Vick has got that now. He's taking on the very tough Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje's 1-2 in the UFC. All entertaining fights. He's earned a performance bonus in every single fight he's fought in the UFC. I mean, he entered against Michael Johnson. He was the World Series of Fighting champion, I believe. Came over here, had arguably fight of the year with Michael Johnson. Next fight, arguably fight of the year with Eddie Alvarez. Next fight, coming off of that loss to Dustin Poirier, another banger. So Justin Gaethje is the human highlight reel for a reason. He's a guy that comes in here and sacrifices his body for our entertainment, essentially. He's like, fuck it. I'm not even going to use my wrestling. I'm just going to go in here, get punched, and punch you back. You know, he's taking damage to give damage. Normally, the name of the game is give damage and not take it. But he's like, fuck that. Fans don't like Floyd Mayweather. No, I'm just saying, Justin Gaethje, he throws caution to the wind. It's like he doesn't give two fucks about CTE and all of that shit. He's just trying to get in there and get out quick and get that $50,000 check. So respect to Justin Gaethje, super fun to watch, fan favorite fighter for sure, but it's going to be tough to beat the very talented James Vick, but I actually think Justin Gaethje can pull it off. I know a lot of people are picking James Vick because as of lately, Justin Gaethje has been getting finished, you know what I'm saying? He's been taking a lot of damage. But this is the thing about Justin Gaethje in this fight, where he will have the advantage. And if you just watch Justin Gaethje, you might not know this because he doesn't utilize his fucking wrestling skills. But he's got them. He's got some legit wrestling, you know, a background. And with that being said, James Vick doesn't have the best takedown defense. If you look at James Vick's resume, go to UFC.com, pull it up, see how many times he's been taken down and whatnot. He's been taken down by quite a few of his opponents. He'll find the win, whether it's a decision, whether he finishes you. But guys definitely have success with their wrestling against James Vick. That's facts. That's honestly, whenever I saw that, I'm like, why the fuck is this guy calling out Kevin Lee? Kevin Lee, if you have troubles with your wrestling, Kevin Lee will definitely put you on your back. And so, but with that being said, now that James Vick is getting higher up in the rankings, he's talking about, nah, Kevin Lee, I've been calling you out. You should have took the opportunity when you had the chance. You know, and that's one of those situations where both fighters are just looking to get up in the rankings. Why would Kevin Lee fight back to James Vick? He wasn't even ranked not too long ago. What was he ranked? Number 15. Kevin Lee's fighting for an interim title against Tony Ferguson. Kevin Lee's already, you know, fighting the biggest names, Michael Chiesa, Tony Ferguson and shit. Why would he look back to James Vick unless it's just a, hey, I ain't got nobody else to fight type situation? But if he's trying to advance and become one of the bigger stars of the sport and a champion, that wouldn't be a smart fight for Kevin Lee to take at that time. Now that James Vick is fighting higher ranked opponents and he's going to get a higher ranking above his name, now Kevin Lee might be interested. Hey, now you've got something I actually want. I want to move up in the rankings. So now Kevin Lee might take the fight, but James Vick is like, nope, you should have took the opportunity when I gave it to you. Should have took the chance when you had it. I called you out back when I was like, when the fight didn't, you know. So I don't think Kevin Lee is actually scared of James Vick. I just think it was a political situation. And now James Vick said if he wins this fight, he's not going to fight Kevin Lee. So what the fuck's really going on? But with that being said, hey, maybe that's the best move. Because like I said, James Vick doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. And I actually think we're going to see Justin Gaethje come in here, utilize his wrestling, and get a couple takedowns in this fight. And I think he can win this fight for sure. I know a lot of people are going to be counting him out because he got knocked out in his last two fights and he's been taking a lot of damage. But to be fair, we don't know how James Vick is necessarily going to do against these leg kicks or the wrestling of Justin Gaethje. He's definitely probably going to be the smarter fighter. You would think, because of fight IQ, if the fight remains standing, he's going to be able to probably do what Poirier and Alvarez did, but I'm not sure. I don't know if James Vick is as good as the tried and true Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez. I know he's been dying to prove it. He's been beating up some dudes, you know, Francisco Trinaldo most recently, but we haven't got to see him against that top competition. So I'm actually going to give the slight edge to Justin Gaethje. I think he can win this fight, but it's going to be really tough, man. James Vick's a beast, and he's been waiting for this opportunity. He's got a chip on his shoulder. We'll see what happens. If James Vick wins this fight, which he very well could, then he'll be looking for, to keep moving up the ladder and ultimately get that title shot. And it's hard for me to pick against James Vick here because, I mean, at first I was leaning toward James Vick, but I think we get to see Justin Gaethje's wrestling in this fight. I think it would be a smart fight to utilize his wrestling as James Vick. That's really, if you look at his fights, that's what he's had the most trouble with. And even if he does decide to come in here and forget his wrestling for the third time in a row, not forget his wrestling, but not use his wrestling for the third time in a row, I think I still want to see how James Vick will deal with those fucking brutal leg kicks of Justin Gaethje, because in his last two fights, it was almost to the point to where I was like, it ain't got nothing to do with Eddie Alvarez or Dustin Poirier's heart. I don't know if their legs can take much more of this. James Vick's a taller lightweight, so I know Gaethje's going to be attacking them legs. He's going to be probably trying to mix in a takedown or two. Gaethje definitely has the tools to win this fight if he so chooses to, I feel like. But James Vick's also dangerous. He can knock out Justin Gaethje. He can submit Justin Gaethje. So it's going to be a great main event between Vick and Gaethje, but I'm giving the slight nod to Justin myself. With that being said, it is what it is. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. And before we go, shout out to all the full-time MMA white belts that have hit the subscribe button. Make sure you also hit the bell right next to it so you get notified every time I upload a new video, or some of the time that I upload a new video, because YouTube's notification bell is a player hater. But this is one of the hardest working independent MMA channels on YouTube. We provide daily updates, full fight card breakdowns and predictions. We make MMA fighter freestyles, and we've already interviewed pro fighters Aljamain Sterling, Sean O'Malley, Felony Charles Bennett, and Bruce Lushmedio in just a little over a year as an MMA channel. We're one of the fastest growing MMA channels on YouTube. So with that being said, if you're interested in more videos like this, check out the Full-Time MMA Dojo over at patreon.com. One of the things you can see while you're over there are some of the goals of the channel, and also more free videos like this, betting advice, and more. We just launched the Full-Time MMA store over on teespring.com, and we've got some limited edition gear in order to celebrate that. We've got some Day One Foop the Other Side shirts that are only available for a limited time. Also, you got leggings, phone cases, Don't Be a Bagel Biter, coffee mugs, and more. With that being said, you can check the links out in the description if you want to check out the Full-Time MMA Dojo or the Full-Time MMA store on Teespring. I apologize about the long outro, but a closed mouth don't get fed, so respect. Let the Full-Time family know what you think in the comments. I'm out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking DOG.